woman who's deeply educated on this shit, has done it her whole life, and you're invited on a global platform that's bringing a spotlight to this particular year. I get it. She said, but now that we've got that clear, I get it, you get me, now we get to like do more. I said, that's exactly it. And that's actually what Sonja was trying to say that night in Salem, where the day my grandmother died, and it ended up being this conversation about like whether or not there was a lot of spiritual. But before all that, the beats, how we're giving our beats. The beat was, Sonja, let the women know that you and Eboni were able to go to Philadelphia with the matchmaker friend of mine, Devin Simone, love you, and have a really beautiful, fun fucking girls' day, like two teenagers. That wasn't all rooted in, Black liberation and white privilege and da-da-da-da. Not that those things aren't important, but like that just wasn't the nature of our trip because Sonja and I had already seen each other on that.
Right.
And so we were able to then move on to all the other aspects of our womanhood and our new friendship and our interests. And Sonja was trying to tell that to the women and just went off fucking track. But that is why Sonja, for me, was the safest space and the one I could feel most trusted because I knew she saw me. She understood my agenda, if you will. She says, listen, and I think this is part, because of, I was privileged, this episode didn't air, but Sonja did a Friends as Family dinner during the season, and I was actually the only housewife that was there with her and her actual, like, friend group. Okay. And I met, like, a ton of Sonja's really close, like, lifetime friends. And almost exclusively gay men and Miss, her psychic, who's been, Roberta.
Yeah.
Who's been on some old episodes. Miss Roberta was super fun. And I just was brought into Sonja's world. When you see Sonja's real world, these are people that have very aligned values and know what it's like to be invisible in spaces of social hierarchy. And it just was a dynamic. So, yeah.
That makes sense.
If that makes sense, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
To the complexion part.
Yes.
I am not by any stretch the lightest black woman in America, so I don't want to get that twisted. But I do have some level of privilege as it relates to what I look like, in terms of a proximity and a palatableness that says that what I look like as a black woman is perhaps more comfortable and acceptable than some other black people in the space. And I would be so ignorant and lazy and remiss to not acknowledge that that is at least a variable and a factor as to me being cast on this platform. And if I'm the first black woman on this show, and I have some level of privilege, and I don't use that for productive good, I'm complicit in the supremacy. And I'm simply put a piece of shit to me. So that's a part of the work.
That makes sense. It's all interesting. I certainly never thought of that.
No, but Sonja did. Isn't that interesting?
That is.
I did not, hand to God, I did not tip her hand on that. She or somebody in her world helped her put two and two together. And so for her to mirror that to me and like see my soul in that way and kind of get my obligation to it in that context, that was fucking powerful to me.
And you think that is not, of course, what, but like that just subconsciously or subconsciously is in part why you were cast as the chosen one? Or no, it had nothing to do with that?
Oh, of course it was part of it. I mean, it's all part of it. I mean, just like, it's not an accident. And I'll say this, every woman on my cast is beautiful. That's not an accident. Like, they're not casting toads to be housewives.
They're not.
They're just not. Most of the, this is now like franchise-wide, all the cities, everybody has a nice body. Everybody, it's like, there's an aesthetic.
Yes.
There's an aesthetic. And I know Potomac gets into the colorism of it all. And again, I'm not going to go there because that's their show. But it's a thing. This isn't coming out of left field.
Right.
Go
Sonja. Right?
Yeah, and again, I don't want to put too much on Sonja. I don't want to make her a target. But I think it should be known that this wasn't, to me, it wasn't Sonja saying, I'm going to play the woke older housewife. This is Sonja just living her truth based off of who is around her. And again, once I saw the men around her, I had the privilege of spending one afternoon with her daughter Quincy off camera. Like, it makes sense why Sonja moves like Sonja moves, to me.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's also why, and you go back to that first episode of Watch What Happens Live after the premiere, Andy asked me which housewife I felt most intellectually compatible with. And I said Sonja, and people were like really shitty about it. Fuck you guys. Y'all don't really know Sonja, would be my retort to that.
Right. I do remember that on Watch What Happens
Yeah.
Live.
One housewife has sent me a really exceptional social thought theory book, and it was Sonja.
Really?
Yes.
Miss Morgan is deeper than we know.
Much deeper. And that's not to take away from her zaniness and fun and sexy, kooky, strong
Right.
shit.
You could be both.
And that's the thing. And I think, to people that talk about the pivot, that's the pivot. The pivot is not, let's turn housewives into an AFAM studies class. Make no mistake about it. The pivot is making space for more. That's it.
Well, speaking about more, what is going on?
Talk about CBS?
No, before
okay.
we get to CBS, I'm talking about, I think there's just a lot. Well, listen, I know because I get asked. Now, I'll tell you what I know in a second.
What do you know? Because you might know more than me.
No, I don't know more than you. But,
Right.
That's the thing. People are, week after week, month after month. I don't know if people get it. I'm curious to hear, but, so you haven't heard anything.
Oh, not a peep. And none of us have. None of us have. And to me, it's a good sign. I don't, what's it, slow news is good news, I think. In this sense, I have no idea
Okay, so Eboni, that really, everyone's listening and they're like, the two of you should have just shut the hell up and cut to this part because this is what keeps people up at night. Like, where is RHONY? So you haven't heard?
I've not heard a peep.
No.
No one has. The only thing I know is what is out there that is actually true, which is there was a robust casting for New Housewives, which has been completed. And I can't see a scenario where RHONY's not back in full force. I think this is the heartbeat, one of the heartbeats of the RHONY, the Real Housewives franchise, David. And I think that the network and Andy specifically, quite frankly, if I can say, take RHONY personally and seriously. And I think they're going to do everything in their power to bring it back to its most spectacular glory. And I think they're going to take a cue from Orange County's kind of reboot in terms of what I think is being lauded as a very successful, I think people felt like Orange County was kind of on its last leg, and now there's a lot of energy around it, and I think that there's going to be some, and same with Miami, not that it was, I think it should have never been canceled, but it's doing amazing, and so I think that people are going to see, what's the cocktail of veterans, some newbies, and plot twists.
So you 100% think it's coming back?
100%.
Now, I know as well, I specifically know many people who have been contacted. Now,
yes, I do too.
Okay, yes. So yes and yes, you do think it's coming back. You do think it's coming back. Do you, listen, you're not Andy, I'm not Andy.
No.
So this is no inside information, but who do you think is coming back?
I will say this, I think at least one of my current castmates is coming back in a full-time capacity, possibly two. Listen, possibly all of us, but, I would say at least one is coming back in a full-time capacity, and I think maybe one other as a friend. So I think you'll see the majority of who you saw last season on this season. I think you're going to see Dorinda. I really do.
You do.
I don't know that. I have no tea. I really don't, so I don't want to, eat shit here. But, yeah, I do. I really do. Just instinctually. And I...
Which OG do you think is coming back full-time?
I don't know. I could make the case for all three. And I could see a scenario where all three are back. I really could.
And you really think we're going to see Dorinda?
Yeah, I really do.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think she's necessarily the only kind of veteran return.
Who else do you think we'll see?
It depends on how big the check they want to write is.
You think they're going to give Bethany $5 million?
Stranger things have happened. there could be a kind of Hail Mary situation where it's like, let's just go real fucking big or go home. I don't think that's completely off the table, personally.
I would agree personally with that. Mm-hmm. Like, if you want to do the Heather Dubrow...
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you want to just go all... Like, if you just want to, like, say fuck it, right? Like either we cancel it or, like, we just, like, give it everything we've got. That's what I would do. That's what I would say I would do. I would actually bring back Bethany. I'll write a big fat ass check. I'd bring back Dorinda. I'd bring back Sonja. I'd actually bring back Ramona. I would. I think there's a space for Lu, because I just think that Countess energy is just always going to play well. Not saying I wouldn't bring back Leah. I just think that, that would be a plot twist kind of move. And then I think there's at least 2, like, brand new faces we've never seen before. I don't necessarily think they need to be young. I kind of agree with Carol's take on that. Like, it's more about life experience. It's about interesting new experience versus, like, you don't have to be 35 to bring the shits,
I would agree. Now, as we get kicked out of this room...
Literally.
And we wrap up, because we're going to have to do another one of these, because I could talk about this... You threw me through a loop with Dorinda, but the one thing I want to say before we wrap up is, like, I think like a producer, as do you.
We're coming! Go ahead. Give us 2. Go ahead.
We're coming in 2. Like, I think like a producer, as do you, and I completely agree with that if you are not going to cancel this, and if you're like, this is a major network, it is a major show, and you want to save this, there is no Heather Dubrow option other than $5 million to Bethany Frankel. Yeah. That is it. Yeah. You can go down Jill Zarin. No, it's dated. KKB. I love my KKB. It's not happening. It's not happening.
And maybe a couple of appearances, right? Right. Like, actually ran into her really randomly in the village, and it was really kooky, fun energy.
But like, love Bethany or not, that is what is going to drop the bomb on this franchise.
And where she is now, and, it just could all be very interesting, and where she would be, like, with the OGs and the newbies, and it could all just be very interesting.
I agree. We're going to do this again. Eboni, you have been great. Where can everyone follow you online? I love you.
I'm just like a old bitch that's on Instagram all the time. Eboni K. Williams, as one word.